Shalom, shalom, Chevra. It's a delight to be here with Rabbi Dov Laimon, who is a Sofer Stam and teacher living in Yerushalayim, the holy city of Jerusalem. At the Pardes Institute of Jewish Studies, he's introduced hundreds of students to the discipline of writing the Hebrew letters in their traditional forms using genuine materials. Reb Dov is a student of Rav Shalom Friedman, Admor Mitmo Hornsteipel, and Rav Daniel Landis. Rabbi Laimon, thank you for taking time to talk.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So to start off with your Safras work, your scribe work, first tell us a little bit. What's the life of a sofer like? What's the spiritual world of a sofer like? Why is this even important? The value of teaching Safrut and the question of teaching this writing to women and to non-observant women, non-observant men, things that are less done in the Orthodox world. So we'd love to hear a little bit about what inspires this work for you.
Writing is a beautiful craft. It's a beautiful craft and a wonderful discipline. Sometimes frustrating, but often rewarding. I'd say really like any craft and perhaps any art. The spiritual side is a side that I make every effort to give some voice to in the classes that I teach. I'm anxious that my students will learn not simply how to write, but they will begin to enter into the vast world of machshava, essentially regarding what reality is. Because as you know, letters are otiyot, are a huge part of all of our sacred literature and mystical literature. Reality comes into being through speech. Wouldn't have had to be that way. And so, in addition to teaching students essentially how to hold a kulmus, how to hold a pen, and how to distinguish between what's an essential kosher shape of a letter and what is not, and what's a beautiful shape of a letter and what's less successful. I always make an effort to introduce them to some aspect of the literature surrounding sofros, whether it is a midrashic or halachic, and often it is from kind of an introductory, significant but introductory texts that have to do with otiyot, say certain parts of Sefer Tanya, a certain beloved chapter in Sefer Pardes from Rav Moshe Cordovero, couple selections from the Zohar, which are just golden and, in my estimation, important to know, and that helps build a matrix, like essentially a spiritual matrix, spiritual intellectual matrix, which one can assimilate and essentially and necessarily frame the experience of writing, so that when a person writes l'shem kedushat tefillin, and then when a person writes l'shem kedushat shem Hashem, the person has to have a general kavanah starting any project of writing, and then a specific kavanah, an intent when he comes to writing a particular divine name, that a person should have, in my opinion, some understanding, at least an entrance level understanding of what a name signifies, and deeper than that, what a name is. And those are things which have to be pursued in order to not simply to have familiarity, but to have experience and to have grasp, I think, what we call emunah regarding. As far as teaching women, that's totally different. It's totally different perspective. Teaching women and men who are not themselves observant, they're speak about this often with people because especially, I teach a lot of rabbinical students are in Jerusalem for the year, say Reconstructionist or from Hebrew College or from all over. And I make clear to people from the beginning, essentially, there's the halakha. The halakha states relatively clearly which writing projects are considered kosher, written by whom, and which, meaning the majority, often are not. So the first thing is that I deal with all my students with absolute, as much as I can, absolute honesty regarding the halakha, regarding the halacha, the kashrut of the writing. But after that point, I feel that it's their option and their responsibility to choose how to live and how to act with that halakha. I know that a lot of the women who I'm teaching, they may go ahead and write their own mezuzah, which I, according to Shulchan Aruch, consider not kosher. And I have a number of students who have gone on and written their own Sifrei Torah. And they are totally aware that, as I've told them, I wouldn't be able to take an aliyah in a shul to that sefer because of the halachot regarding who is the craftsman who wrote that sefer. But I don't feel that has to stop me in encouraging all men and women who have the motivation to come and learn and then choose what they're going to do with that skill.
Yeah, very interesting. So just one more question on this topic. How, on the spiritual level, how do you think about your relationship to Kadosh Baruch Hu differently through the kavanas of Safras as compared to kavanas involved in other Jewish activities, learning or tefillah? Like, is there something unique experientially, existentially, spiritually about your relationship to the Creator when you're engaged in writing?
There can be, in general, meaning in day-to-day life, I would say that the most sofrim, when they begin a project and they say L'Shem Kedushat Sefer Torah, they are not in the Olamot Elyonim with that Sefer Torah, which is Kulo Shem Hashem, which is entirely Ruchaniyut. They are much more, focused on the physical materials and the physical task at hand, and the fact that this is a parnasah, and so on. But, so in that regard, the kavanah for writing a Sefer Torah might not be any different than the kavanah, say, for putting on tefillin or taking a lulav or keeping Shabbos or Baruch Hashem, any of the mitzvot. However, our understanding of otiot is that otiot are essentially the elemental particle with which upon which reality rests. That structure of 22 letters, as the Sefer Yetzirah refers to at the very beginning of the Sefer, the 32 Netivot of Chochmah are made up of 22 letters and 10 sfirot. Because they are essential to a spiritual view, spiritual understanding of upon what structure reality is based. So if a person goes into the writing, as I say, either consciously or simply in a larger framework, that's the matrix in which he's functioning, then the opportunity for a kavanah, which has tremendous depth, is very great. Whether it's experiential or not, I'm cautious about experience, but I'm very big on yedi'ah, in knowing texts, in knowing approaches to sefer is, go look, say, at the Vilna Gaon's Perush on Sifra de Tzniuta at the very beginning, when he describes what a sefer is. It's not what I think of when I first think of the word sefer. It's something fantastic.
Yeah. So, okay, just one last question for you today, although it's incredibly broad. One passage of the Mor Nevuchim, among others that I know you think a bit about, is 154. And also related to Yesodei Torah, chapter 2. And there HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem is described as having no midot, emotionless, featureless. And I wonder if that's something that resonates for you, and how does that help us to understand or not understand the divine role within Scripture, hashgacha, meaning divine providence, and history at large?
Well, as you know, in the Mor Nevuchim, anything that helps us not understand helps us understand, right? We are always aiming towards the negative in order to have a greater grasp of what we know that we cannot know. To me, I'm a tremendous chassid of the Rambam there, where essentially he says everything is mashal, everything about HaKadosh Baruch Hu is simply known through our experience, which we then interpret and identify as divine midot. But he says, but if we do it properly, we understand, in fact, there are not divine midot. It's simply that we recognize through our own experience what kind of action is coming to us. Is it a welcome action? Is it a fearful action? We call those things love, or some kind of punishment, some kind of harshness. But the Rambam, to my mind, is exceptionally clear that the understanding of midot is secondary, meaning it comes from my eyes, my ears, my perception, my inner willingness to live with, or to want at least to revolt against a particular experience, a personal experience or national experience. And I would like that we would address that more directly, instead of saying, as many people do when they are teaching either something from the Chumash or even something in say the mystical literature. They will say, God kiviyachol decided this, did this, said this. Whereas to me, the Rambam, even though he's speaking very carefully, he's saying you have to understand that in truth, God does. I'm afraid to say it. I'll simply say that God has no midot. And if God has no midot, even as the Ari points out, you have to be exceptionally careful, even when you read a pasuk like Vayedaber Hashem al Moshe Laimon. If you understand Vayedaber in any way, like the way, for example, you and I are speaking now, that there's an unseen source, and then there's the ear of that very holy and great person, Moshe Rabbeinu. If you understand that that's some kind of conversation, says the Rambam, says the Ari there, you're radically mistaken. And these are things that I think we want not to be mistaken about. We want to develop a tremendously sophisticated understanding, which will bring us into essentially, whether you want to call it a greater spiritual reality or a greater emunah or a greater point of view. I think we have traditional points of view.
So, I think of you, sorry to cut you off for a moment, I think of you as someone who's a student of and a teacher of Hasidic Torah. And tell me if I'm wrong, I think of what you're sharing now in the Rambam as very antithetical to the Hasidic Torah, that of a God who is emotionally alive, spiritually, emotionally reachable, affected by us in deep relationship. Whereas the Rambam's God is very distant through this negative theology of not having midot we can relate to or even speak about. Am I understanding that correctly? Or
listen, my Rebbe only teaches like first generations of Hasidus. In other words, he generally does not go past the Mitra Rebbe of Chabad. And I'm totally affected by that. If you read in Chabad, Chabad is, I would say, not like you've just described. And if you read in the Magid and in the Baal Shem Tov, I think you'll see that it's not like that. That those teachers were Kabbalists who, like the Ari himself, allowed themselves to speak in images with a fundamental understanding that it has to be shot through with understanding that this is a code, and to take descriptions of the divine in a human understanding is a woeful mistake.
Yeah.
Not everyone agrees with that, but that's my perspective, and that's a constant goal of mine.
Okay, everything is symbolic, it's representational. Even going back to the Otiot, the letters of Torah, that they themselves are not absolute. They're vehicles, they're channels towards a
Right.
deeper hidden truth. Right.
Right.
Beautiful.
Like you'll see, for example, in Sefer Pardes, where he has a whole section on the letters, which is almost at the very end of the entire Sefer, and he says Otiot are hechalot for ruchaniyut. And of course, that's the first step in.
Mm-hmm.
Just like he'll say about Sfirot, there is no such thing as an absolute Sfira. Every Sfira is in relation to. It is just like we say, for the Sfir Sa'omer, there's a Gevur Shebechesed. He'll say, in truth, there are many, many, many layers, always, virtually infinite layers of how all of the Sfirot are affecting all of the Sfirot constantly. That there is no such thing as an absolute like this or like that. Things are simply not that simple.
Beautiful. And so what this can do, among many other things, is inspire a sense of mystery and wonder and ultimately humility for what we know and what we don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, Shkoyach. Thank you, Rav Dova, Laimon, and Chevra. Encourage you to go learn at Pardes and learn Safrut, learn scribal art with
or online.
Or online. Ah, beautiful. Okay, cool.
I have some students now in a few places across America.
Beautiful. Yashikah.
Thank you, Rav Shmuly. My honor.